Greetings, boys, girls, and gender rebels. I'm Penny Underbust, and today I'm going to be talking about something that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. Now, I can talk about emotions till the cows come home, right? I'm very capable of expressing myself when I have some intense feelings that I need to get out there because I understand them very well in myself, and I feel like a lot of people don't. You know, I don't know, I've always felt from a very young age like it's my obligation to speak up about that sort of thing. But the sort of thing that got me, violently interfered with as a small child was my opinions. So I'm very scared to share my opinions. I can share emotions, I can share feelings, I can share things that are subjective, but when it gets to me talking about beliefs that I hold for the world at large or humanity interacting with it, I always get very scared. And there's nothing wrong with people criticizing or questioning me. It's absolutely ridiculous that I have a hard time with this sort of thing. But that's just my reality. So today I'm going to attempt to talk about piracy from the perspective of an Australian child. So when you grow up in rural Australia like I did, and the best option that you have is a dial-up internet connection, you have probably 3 TV channels that connect. This is pre-YouTube. This is probably the height of internet entertainment that was available when I was a small child was stuff like Flash animations. And Flash animations were great, but not when you have a dial-up connection, because you can only watch one every 20 to 30 minutes. And there's only so many times you can watch badges, 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 badges. It's badges, 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 mushroom, mushroom, before your brain literally mushes. And trust me when I say that whatever that number is, whatever the number is that you can get to before it mushes, I reached that number. I also didn't have very many friends growing up. Because, I was a nerd in rural Australia, so I tended to make my friends on the internet. And part of the thing that sucked the most about that is most of my friends were Americans, which is probably why I ended up married to an American, but most of my friends were Yanks, and they had access to the latest movies and the latest television shows and all that good stuff. And they were always telling me about them and being like, oh my god, this movie came out, it was so good! Pirates of the Caribbean, I remember when that came out, and I was just so freaking jealous of all my American friends for having seen it. So, there is a solution to this problem, and it's not to wait until you can legally watch the things, because if that's going to happen, it'll happen 6 months to 12 months from the time that everyone else is seeing it. Back then, there was I don't know how it still is actually. Maybe there's still a huge delay from media reaching Australia. But growing up specifically, media would not reach Australia because of copyright stuff that they had to work out between the different countries, I think. Anyway, so it wasn't to wait, because even if you did wait, there was a relatively high chance that it still just wouldn't make it to you. Because there was only so many movies that we showed at the cinemas, and they had to reach a certain level of importance, and there was only so many television channels, and they were mostly taken up by Australian television stuff, which makes sense. So, your option is Yaar piracy, which I got into pretty heavy as a small child. I don't know what the culpabilities of me legally saying that I used to pirate a lot of stuff when I was a kid are, but I now don't pirate, because I am a privileged cum stain on the YouTube community who can afford things like entertainment these days. But when you grow up as a poor kid in rural Australia, you can't afford to buy things, and even if you could afford to buy things, they weren't available for sale back then. So, let me tell you about how that made me view my media and my entertainment and stuff like that. I loved it. I wished that I could pay. In fact, what I would regularly do when there was something that I really loved, like for example, probably the biggest love that I had after Pokemon, because Pokemon was my first true entertainment love, but the biggest love I had after that would have been Futurama. And I fucking loved Futurama. I'm not as good at it anymore because it used to require me like watching that shit on repeat for ridiculous quantities of time in my childhood. But I used to be able, like, if you told me a line from the show, I used to be able to tell you the episode number, what season, the name of the episode, and the character that said it, and it wouldn't have been hard. Like, you know, the like quiz shows in the 90s, how you'd have like, what's your special topic of knowledge? Mine would have been Futurama. I knew freaking everything about that show. And because I knew everything about that show and I loved it, only the first 3 or 4 seasons, because they only those 4 the first seasons, because I knew so much about it, because I just loved it so much. The moment it was available for like a DVD box set, I bought it. And I had to save for this. Like, it was like a $50 box. I don't know, it was because it was a box set of all the seasons. So it was like $125 at JB Hi-Fi in Brisbane. And I didn't live in Brisbane. Brisbane was where my brother lived, though. But I just wanted it so much. So I saved for it. I already had a job at that point. I was like 14 or 15. I already had a job. So I just saved money at my job and bought this box set. And same thing with Firefly. Same thing with actually a lot of things that I had consumed voraciously for free. And if I had to have paid for them to watch them in the first place, I wouldn't have. It just wouldn't have come up. I would never have seen them. So when I think about piracy from my perspective as a person who makes content, right? Content that is behind a paywall on my Patreon. I don't like talking about it because I don't like making people feel uncomfortable about a thing that they can't afford necessarily, so I hate advertising. I'm very uncomfortable with the concept of advertising or marketing at all, in case you haven't noticed from the fact that I don't have AdSense turned on my YouTube account. You don't see ads with my videos, right? And then I don't usually promote things unless I specifically reached out to them, or like I wanted to get it to begin with and I'm kind of like curious. I'll promote something then, or like talk about my experience with it. I am so profoundly uncomfortable even mentioning that I have a Patreon. It's always down in the description box because it's easy for me to just write a little link and be like, here it is, but I don't know how to be like, and you should consider giving me money, that would be nice, because I feel like I'm just making the people who were like me when I was younger feel guilty and upset that they can't afford it. So my view on piracy as a person who creates content that is behind a paywall is that it helps me. And that's an interesting one, because obviously I don't want the people who have paid money for my content, the people who sponsor my existence as an entertainer, because Patreon is literally my only paycheck. Those people who sponsor my whole continued survival as an entertainer, I don't want them to like be giving me money for nothing. So I always try to go above and beyond there. I always try to be just heaping content, heaping just tons of stuff on my Patreon, even if it's mostly just selfies and stuff like that, because people like that, because people love consuming that, and it's easy for me to create in high volume so that people feel involved and engaged and stuff. And that's a whole different rant topic for a different video, but like, I am genuinely of the opinion that someone consuming my content via piracy isn't a customer. Like, if they weren't going to pay me to begin with, like if they're not like, oh yeah, oh my god, Penny Underbus has a Patreon account, oh my god, of course I'm going to sign up for $20, and oh my god, I get to see all these unique videos, and like, oh my god, this is so cool. Like, if they aren't that way to begin with, I'm not getting their money. It's never coming to me. It's just not. So if they find a way to consume my media for free, then they might. And that has a lot to do with the quantity and quality or style of my content. Like, I think what I provide to Patreon, sometimes I feel like an absolute trash fire. I have rather severe imposter syndrome, so regularly I feel like a trash fire who is worthless and who provides nothing of value and should just curl up into a small ball and die. But on other days, I'm like, look at how much you created today. Look at how many people have told you that they loved your content and how happy they are. So like, at other times, I feel like I have achieved something worthwhile and valuable. So like, I'm of the opinion that if someone stumbles upon that somewhere, a big old rip, big old dump of my garbage, and then they consume it and they go, wow, there's like 1,000 photos here for 1 month. There's like 15 videos for 1 month. And I've got all these old months, but like, I don't have access to the newer ones that she's releasing now. And I like this. And I don't have $20 on me right now. So maybe I'll continue looking to see if I can continue to pirate her future months, because I don't have $20. But then maybe when they do have $20, maybe after a while of consuming stuff for free, they'll be like, you know what? I got $20. I love this. This is great. I'm going to go throw it at that person who makes me a lot of things that I like. Because that's very much how I was when I was a kid. Like, I loved the media that I consumed. I wouldn't have found it if I hadn't been able to find it for free. Like, I never would have seen it in the first place. But I did, because I voraciously consumed freaking everything and anything that I could get my hands on, and I could only get my hands on free stuff. So then once I fell in love with it, and there was a lot of things that I didn't fall in love with. There was a lot of things that I started watching and I was like, eh. And I figure that's going to be 99.99% of the people who check out my work ever. Like, whenever you click on someone, there's like a really high chance that you'll just be like, oh, this is shit, and click immediately off it. There's going to be some people who aren't like that. There's going to be some people who start off just liking my appearance, who just think, wow, she's pretty. And then for a while, like, I don't know, start liking my opinions, or maybe I'm funny. I don't know. Like, I don't think that I have good opinions or that I'm funny, but maybe someone else thinks that I am. I get comments telling me I am sometimes. Anyway, I don't know if I'm making my point here, but like, and also this isn't to shame any creators who are really uncomfortable with their work being pirated or shared. I know so many incredible, wonderful, beautiful, stunning, favorite people, sort of amazing models who have like kind of little meltdowns every time they find their content has been like uploaded somewhere else or shared. And I get that. This video is not to shame those people and make them feel like garbage, because, they are more in that mindset that I mentioned of the not wanting to betray the people who do fund them. Because it's like, so much of what I believe is like, yeah, it's good for my business to have piracy. It's not good for the people who I think, fund my existence. Like, they aren't getting it for free, and yet they're the ones who support me the most. They're the ones who genuinely like love me and want to see me continue. I mean, see, this is what I mean though. They aren't the only ones who genuinely love me, because a lot of people who don't have the money to support me also genuinely love me, and that puts me back in that state of the 14-year-old child who's just screaming in my ear like, but no, we love you too and we just can't afford it. And it's like, that's a good point, 14-year-old Penny. But hopefully you understand what I'm saying here, where it's like the people who can and do find the way to be able to support your existence, you feel like you owe them so much, because you do. And as a creator, sometimes knowing that one of those people who you trusted, who you gave a lot to, then like turned around and just gave all of your hard work. And I mean, it is actually difficult running a Patreon. I know a lot of people are going to be like, world's tiniest violin, it's a really good job. I agree. I freaking love it. It's like my favorite job that I've ever had, and I've had a lot of jobs. But it's also very hard. It's not an easy job. It's one that requires you to be very capable of shifting yourself and jumping on things and just outputting constant flow of entertainment, which is way more than I feel any other generation of entertainer has been expected to do. Like the whole YouTube output, the whole model output, that sort of thing. It's ridiculous. It's much easier to create content these days than it was. But because of that, people have expectations for us to be working like 24/7. And I know that I do, and I know that a lot of my mates do as well. And sometimes, like, I always get hurt that I always get like upset that I'm hurting other people or doing something dumb because I have so many weird hippie views and stuff, like this whole like piracy's good for me and dumb shit like that. Like, so I tend to only work with myself because I don't want to include other people in the garbage fire that is my brain. You know, other people don't. Other people work with photographers and makeup artists and editors, and those people, you know, they've had to pay them. They give them credit, and they want those people to get the attention and fame that they deserve. And if someone's just pirating and spreading, it's mostly only sharing the image of the model. It's mostly only going to benefit the model. So it makes sense to get angry that all it is like possibly bringing in future money for someone, when a lot of these models don't, you know, like, money's nice, but they care about making sure everyone gets credit. Because believe it or not, a lot of people in the modeling industry, they are where they are because they feel, you know, they were outcasts, they were outsiders, they were weirdos, so they learned to embrace and love themselves, especially in like the cosplay or body mod sort of weird modeling community that I'm in. Like, you know, we usually got names for ourselves because we were told we were ugly or bullied over and over again, and we said, you know what, no, I'm not, and we like pushed through that. So we often have severe issues with the thought of someone else getting ignored and all of the credit going to us. Like, I know I do. I know I get profoundly uncomfortable when I feel like I'm the one getting all of the attention in the room because I don't feel like I fucking deserve it. Yeah, so this has been a really long-winded rant, but hopefully an interesting one and a perspective that people can mull around in their head even if they don't agree with me. Point blank, I don't expect everyone to agree with me on this one. In fact, I don't expect many people to agree with me on this one. Like, the start of the video explained my like anxiety of sharing my opinions because I know my opinions are I grew up atypically, alright? My mother was a traveling palmist and I never stayed at the same school for more than 1 calendar year. So my brain doesn't work in traditional ways, but because of that I think I come up with weird things that are often wrong or stupid, but like are at least a spin on the way that everyone else views, and, you know, devil's advocate. And the devil has more than enough fucking advocates, but yeah, that's generally how I feel about that. And this whole rant was spurred on because Violet Chachki responded to one of my tweets. She tweeted out like, why can't we have a conversation about all of these lazy merch creators who like steal our images and like but not stealing artwork, but like just, you know, drawing fan art of Violet Chachki and then selling fan art of Violet Chachki, and her being like, that's just profiting off of my image and stuff. And I was like, well, hold on. maybe as long as we're creating our own things and they're still selling and like our own merch is walking off the shelves, we shouldn't punish other artists who are inspired by us, who have worked their asses off to also earn money. And I'm super not talking about just re-uploading or stealing a thing, but if someone creates their own unique artistic derivative work from my image, as long as it's not specifically hateful or whatever, and then that's a different reason for why I don't want it to exist. But like the copyright portion of it, I just think is absolutely silly. I think if we aren't encouraging fan art and people to get excited by us or whatever, then we have little to no right to be famous. But I guess that's just me. And also, I love Violet Chachki. I think she's incredible. I don't want this to be like shading on her. She has her own life that has led her to feel her way about her content, and I think that it is valid and important. But personally, I don't agree with it. But there's a lot of things that I don't agree. Like, I think part of the reason, this is super ranty. Part of the reason that I have such an issue sharing my opinions is that when I do, people like, they get, oh, I feel so personally attacked that you said that something that I do is something that you wouldn't do. And it's like, well, yeah, but people tell me, like, every single day of my life that the things that I'm doing are the wrong things to be doing. And it doesn't, like, yeah, I get vulnerable and I get upset and I get cranky, but, like, I get over it and I'm still talking to those people. Like, I don't cut people out of my life just because they, like, say something slightly that makes me have to rethink a view or whatever that I have. Like, sometimes it's good to do that, as long as you're not intentionally being, like, nasty and insulting about shit. I don't know, like, as long as you're not intentionally trying to fling turds at each other, I think having opposite opinions is good, and it's the fruit of life, my friends. Don't live in an echo chamber because you'll never learn anything new. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a comment and subscribe to my boner. From the bottom of my little black heart, thank you so much for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you next time.